Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Jon Stewart, the entertainer, comedian, activist, is out there pressing hard on the VA and the Biden administration to fix some issues with the VA. In other words, what he's actually pushing is to expand benefits for more veterans. This is really important. I wanted to share it with you here today and let you know what's happening out there because he's the one who could be the tip of the spear. Then we at the constituency level need to reach out to our congressional members, let them know that we support this type of action if you do. And then the veteran service organizations like VFW, DAV, American Legion, MOA, TREA, PVA, Purple Heart. I mean, there's so many. All of them will then push on it on Capitol Hill. So, with that, let's jump into it. I'm going to hit the thumbs up for you. There, it's easy. Now you do it. It's not that hard. So hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Doesn't cost a nickel to do that, and it does help out the channel and push out the information. The two asks are really, look, let the video run, hit the thumbs up. That tells YouTube to push it to more. If you want to support the channel in other ways, I really do appreciate it. Thank you to all you members. You can become a member by going to the home page. You'll see highlighted members and a join button. Thank you so much. Let's jump into this. The headline here, and this just came out July 23rd, which was this morning, early on, I think it's the Associated Press. And so let's jump into it. Jon Stewart pushes VA to help veterans sickened after post 9/11 exposure to uranium. Comedian Jon Stewart is pressing the Biden administration to fix a loophole in a massive veterans AIDS bill that left out some of the first troops who responded after the September 11th attacks and got sick after deploying to a base contaminated with dangerous levels of uranium. Special Operation Forces deployed to various areas, including K2 in Uzbekistan. About 3 weeks after the 2001 attacks, K2 was a former Soviet air base that U.S. forces used to strike Taliban targets inside Afghanistan in the earliest days of the war. The base was a former chemical weapons processing site, wonderful, and littered with Soviet-era debris, including demolished bunkers, missile parts, and highly radioactive uranium powder, according to documents obtained by the Associated Press. It's not clear why uranium powder was on the ground or how it got there, but it's worrying those who served at K2. Thousands of K2 veterans in the years since have reported complex medical conditions, some of which are known to be connected to radiation exposure. Imagine you're stationed inside the meth lab of Breaking Bad, Stewart said in an interview with the AP. These guys were exposed to a toxic soup of basically an exploded chemicals and nuclear weapons facility. A massive veterans aid bill called the PACT Act, which we're all well aware of, that was signed into law by President Biden in 2022, addressed many of the health issues facing K2 veterans, but it did not include coverage for radiation exposure at K2. Go figure. K2 veterans have pressed the Department of Veterans Affairs for help for years. Kind of sounds like the Vietnam folks, right? That's horrible. Hopefully this will happen much sooner than what happened for all of those that served in Vietnam. Way overdue. All right, moving on. But so far, the VA has not acted, go figure. The agency has said it is still studying the issue and looking to the Pentagon for additional information before it determines whether to add radiation exposure as a condition K2 service members can get coverage for. Now, let me throw this out there. Part of the PACT Act allows the VA to really determine presumptive conditions in a way more streamlined fashion and really be able to do that more in-house than ever before. So it's really at the VA's almost discretion. So with a little push outside of the VA, we might be able to get something to click here for those that served K2. Moving on, all presumptive conditions established by the VA rather than by legislation require a factual rationale, said VA spokesperson Terrence Hayes. Okay, so let's just read that again a little slower. All presumptive conditions established by the VA rather than by legislation. So the VA to establish the presumptive conditions require a factual rationale. So let's go back to the fact that this was a highly contaminated site with super high levels of uranium, and seems like that's factually rational. Anyway, let's move on. It's been more than 20 years, boy does time fly by, since troops first deployed to K2, and almost 2 years since Biden celebrated the PACT Act's passage. But K2 veterans are still facing the claim denials the PACT Act was supposed to fix. Data obtained by the Associated Press shows the soil at K2 recorded uranium radiation levels up to 40,000 times higher than what would have been expected if there were natural uranium. If the Associated Press can get this information, you would think the VA and the DOD would be able to figure it out and go, you know what, these handful of folks that served at K2 should be able to get compensated for their illnesses that are a result from this extremely high level of uranium radiation, you would think. So, let's see. According to a nuclear fusion specialist and president of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research, who reviewed the data, said that this was 40,000 times higher than what you would be expected to see if it were natural uranium. Even if it were in its least radioactive form, depleted uranium, the soil was up to 24,000 times above what would have been found in soil or in nature. Air samples were more than 30 to 100 times the level that would have been found in normal air samples. Wow. The radiation levels the health team recorded were significant enough that anyone not wearing protective gear, everyone, would have breathed in high levels of contamination when the dust was kicked up, especially during activities such as earth moving. The radiation data was captured in November of 2001 by former Army Sergeant Matthew Nichols, who was part of the Army Environmental Health Team quickly deployed to collect air, water, and soil samples from K2 after the local workers who were preparing the site for arriving U.S. forces fell ill with headaches, nausea, and vomiting. Okay, so all the people there working started getting ill, and we thought, yeah, let's push on. That's a great spot to go, considering we know that it was a former base with all that type of contamination there to begin with. How fun is that? And I'm sure nobody was told, right? No, it's just, here's where you're going. You're leaving tomorrow. As the health team walked the base by the demolished bunkers and remnants of missiles, the team found the soil dotted with yellow pebble-sized clumps of powder and tuna can-shaped containers spilling yellow powder. That's what Nichols said. A tool used to detect radiation went from one click, click, click to sounding like a fishing reel going off. Okay, that just constant pull. Yeah, wonderful. That material was scattered all over the place, he said. Photographs obtained by the AP show Nichols and his team collecting yellow clumps of scattered powder. After the health team reported its findings, the military created a classified base map obtained by the AP. Again, all this stuff obtained by the AP, where the area was marked enriched uranium contamination site to keep tents from being constructed there. But the soil had already been moved by bulldozers and trucks as they pushed up a protective berm. and tents on the other side of the berm were constructed on the soil directly adjacent to the off-limits fields. Radiation exposure from uranium can damage kidneys, create bone cancer risks, and also impact pregnancies because it crosses the placenta, among other harmful effects. Who said, I can't say the last name, we'll just said Dr. M. I think he probably has a doctorate. Anyway, who previously worked with atomic veterans who were sickened by radiation after working at Atoll during nuclear weapons tests in the 1940s. Uranium goes to the bone, he said. Despite detecting the uranium, the military went forward with using the base for the next 4 years and built a sprawling tent city there. Heavy wind and rain hit the base frequently, stirring the contaminants there. More than 15,000 troops rotated through from 2001 until 2005. So we're talking about 15,000 people that are left out, if they're all still alive, right? We don't even know that. So, and of that amount, how many would actually file a claim? So 15,000 troops rotated through that. Since the PACT Act was passed, K2 veterans and former Army Staff Sergeant Mark Jackson has sought medical help for service issues and had to have a testicle removed and had his entire thyroid removed. None of the new medical issues he's experienced since passage of the PACT Act have been covered by the VA. This Friday, Jackson will join Stewart in Washington to press the Department of Veterans Affairs to act faster. Hayes, the VA spokesperson, said the agency is currently doing extensive research to identify evidence that may demonstrate radiation exposure. Ask the Associated Press for all the documents that they obtained so then you can then go ahead and have your factual rationale and be able to identify a handful of presumptive conditions that are associated with it. Moving on. So they said that they're identifying evidence that demonstrate radiation exposure, including analyzing all claims submitted by veterans who served at K2. We are working with this in the utmost urgency, the spokesperson said. That's Terrence Hayes. In a statement to the AP, the Pentagon said late Monday that its own monitoring of the site does not indicate the presence of enriched uranium, and that it is reviewing materials from K2 veterans on the site. The VA doesn't have complete numbers of how many K2 veterans are sick, so the veterans have had to take it upon themselves to organize and collect data. They have been in touch with about 5,000 K2 veterans. Of those, more than 1,500 have self-reported conditions, including cancers, neurological conditions, reproductive system problems, a number of birth defects, and bone conditions, among other issues, said Natalie White, a volunteer for the group. White's husband, Tech Sergeant Clayton White, died at age 41 after a long list of ailments, including osteoarthritis, grand mal seizures, and kidney failure. White was deployed to K2 shortly after the 9/11 attacks. Stewart has long advocated for the firefighters and emergency personnel who responded to the World Trade Center attacks, and in recent years for Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who came home with cancers and other serious illnesses after exposure to toxins in the battlefield. The PACT Act was an immense improvement, Stewart said. A small adjustment by the VA secretary to address the radiation exposure to K2 could fulfill the PACT Act's intent. I agree. He worries some K2 veterans are running out of time. I agree. The worst part about this is those years when they're the sickest being spent in anxiety and struggle against a system that is somehow set to be, I can't even say the word, antagonistic. It's hard for me to say that. Stewart said, I don't know why it is an adversarial system in any way, shape, or form, but that seems to be the uphill climb that everybody has to go through to try to get either the benefits or the health care that they've earned. And let me throw this in there. Not only is this impacting the veteran themselves, it's impacting their spouse and dependents, because if they were to pass away from a service-connected condition, then the dependency indemnity compensation could kick in for their spouse and children, much like Tech Sergeant White there, who passed away at age 41. If he didn't pass away from a service-connected condition, and if he was not rated 100% for 10 years, his wife is most likely not getting dependency indemnity compensation, which, in my opinion, she would be rightfully due, based on the information provided here. The VA needs to step this up and get this taken care of for all the right reasons. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Let us know if you were at K2. We really appreciate your service there, and hopefully we can get this to turn. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.